How's it going, everyone? Grim here with another unboxing, and today I want to unbox for you the Warhammer 40K Imperial Knights Armigers box set. So there are two miniatures, if you can call them miniatures, in this particular box set. And the interesting thing about this particular set is it was released in 2022. So it's a new set, but it's by no means actually new models. It's actually an old sprue from years and years back. And the Armigers, for those of you who don't know, come in two specific datasheet flavors. There's the Armiger Helverin and the Armiger Warglaive. And prior to 2022, GW was selling these as either two Helverins or two Warglaives. And then with this particular box set, they decided to kind of just name it Armigers instead. And you actually get, in this one box set, the required sprues for both the Helverin and the Warglaives. So you can either make two Warglaives, two Helverins, or one of each with this box set. Instead of, prior to this, it was just you could make two Helverins and that's it. Or if you got the Warglaive one, you could make two Warglaives. So let's go ahead and unbox this one and see what the difference between the older set and this set is. Alright, so gosh, I hate these little things. I understand why that little cardboard thing is there, but I hate it because it's hard to open. Okay, so you can see right off the bat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sprues. That's this is a thick box. Look at how thick this box is, right? So you got the 5 different sprues, which is actually broken up. So you have this okay, so this is a brand new instruction booklet, different from what it used to be, because it didn't used to say Knight Armigers. It used to just be Helverins. As you can see, the two Helverins here. Or you would have a different instruction one that came with the Warglaive box set that said Warglaives, and those look different. But they've condensed it basically, so now they say, hey, you can make one of two different styles, and see how the color codedness, as GW often does in their colored instructions, they give you this nice color coding. So you say you can either do this or this, blue or green, Helverin or Warglaive. So in 9th edition, the Warglaive is kind of like the melee, version, and the Helverin is kind of the ranged version. Now, both of them have pretty much the same stats in terms of movement 12, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 6, toughness 7, 12 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 8, and then a 3+ invo save. And as you can see from here, they are not really miniature because they come on these whopping 100mm bases. So that's about 4 inches in diameter. So it's very big. It's the smallest of the Knights, like the Imperial Knights, but it's still pretty big in terms of it being an actual model. So this is the wonderful transfer sheet. Very nice, right? And then for the Helverins, what really separates these two is the Helverins have the auto cannons that have range, a huge 60-inch range, heavy 2d3, strength 7, AP -2, and damage 3. Whereas the Warglaive will have a chain cleaver, which is basically a giant chain sword, and then it'll have a thermal spear. So the chain sword is +4 to strength. So at strength 6, you're looking at 10 strength, AP -4, damage 3. It has 2 different profiles. That's the first profile with the 4 attacks that come in the Warglaives regular datasheet. That's called the strike, or you could do a sweep, which is now the strength is just the user's strength, which is 6, AP minus 3, and damage 1, but each hit counts as 2 hits, or each attack counts as 2 hits. So instead of 4 attacks, if they hit, then it'd be considered 8 attacks instead. So kind of the anti-armor or anti-medium armor and above strike, or the anti-infantry sweep of the Reaper Chain Cleaver, which is just a giant chain sword. And then the Thermal Spear is a heavy 2, strength 9, AP minus 4, D6 damage. And it says here that, basically it's kind of like a Melta, whereas if you're firing within half range, it's got a 30-inch range. So if you're firing at 15 inches or less, the damage is D6 plus 2. So you have that automatic 2, or at least an automatic 3 damage for each of those woundings. So that's pretty good on the Thermal Spear. Once again, that one is designed for more of an anti-armor type of attack, whereas the Helverin is a long range. Not so much, it's kind of anti-armor at strength 7, but kind of not. It's more, it'll take out the more medium type models as opposed to the actual tanks. But anyway, those are really basically the two differences between the two data sheets. And for the longest time, this was the Armiger, this Armiger set, either the Helverin or the Warglaive, were kind of what dominated the mini Imperial Knight and Chaos Knight market. There weren't any actual War Dog models for the longest time. And just recently, GW came out with an entirely separate War Dog model kit that looks very different from this. Looks much more chaosy or evil, quote unquote evil. But if you wanted to play War Dogs, Chaos Knights, prior to the new War Dog model kit, you would actually have to buy these, and the actual codex would say, you'd get these and you convert these to look more chaos, and then now you have the Chaos War Dogs. And back then the Chaos War Dogs only had one data sheet. Nowadays they have like 4 different data sheets. So whereas it used to be that the Imperial Knights Armigers had 2 data sheets and the Chaos War Dogs had 1. Now the Chaos War Dogs have 4 different data sheets or variants, whereas the Armigers just continue to have just the 2, the Helverin and the Warglaive. Hopefully with 10th edition, GW will expand the amount of variants for the Armiger. I think it should be equal. I mean, they're basically, right, the Imperial and the Chaos, the light side and the dark side, equivalents of each other. So I think that the Armigers should have 4 different variants if the Chaos War Dogs have 4 different variants. But you can see here, this particular sprue has got the legs, the lower body, right? This thing is kind of like the hip. And if you look here, you can see this is the ball joint that the hip of the lower torso and the upper torso connect. And if you want to magnetize it so that the upper torso swivels on the magnet, then you just basically cut off this round, for lack of a better term, boob looking thing, and then you put a 10mm magnet in there. It fits perfectly, and then there you go. That's magnetized so that the top piece can separate from the bottom piece for transport, but at the same time that magnet allows it to swivel, so it kind of looks cool, where you can make the top part of the Armiger swing around 360 degrees if you really wanted to. And then these are the sides of the armature. These holes here are where the shoulders go into. These are the feet, right? So these are the shoulders that go into this hole, and you got some upper arm parts, and you got some, this is a face here, this is another face, a couple of different face options for the armature. This is basically the same thing because there's 2 models in each of these box sets, right? So, and here we go, 2 of these, right? This is the upper carapace or upper body armor part. These are the exhausts. These are some cables For those of you who have watched any of my previous videos, you know that I hate cables. It makes no sense that all of these futuristic, technologically advanced machinery and vehicles have these loose cables hanging around, which are just basically weak spots. But this has cables hanging out underneath it on this little thing. This is a melt-a-gun that kind of goes on top. Right, here's the back. And if you can kind of see, the back of the Armiger has a beautiful skull and cog design. And that is just great to paint. You know, like if you want to do what I usually do is kind of make this a gunmetal or silverish metallic backing here. And then these vents can kind of be, these fins on the vents can kind of be like a brass, like a regular brass fin type thing on maybe like a V-Rod motorcycle. But then this skull and cog, I usually paint like a deep brass or even a bronze / copperish paint job to make it stand out from the background silver. It really pops nicely. But that's not like, you know, your opponent is going to be looking at the tail end of this thing anyway, and that's what this is. This is the tail end of the model. So, 2 of these, right? And then it comes with 2 of these shoulder pads, the Reaper chain cleaver, and the thermal spear, and then some of the leg armor, right? And then it also comes with the autocannons, right? So that's the difference between this box set and the previous box sets, which were 2 separate box sets. The 2 separate box sets had this right here, and then it had either this for the Helverin or this for the Warglaive. And what GW did is now they just basically combined it all together, which is, I think, is a great idea. Of course, in doing so, they charge more for it, but still, it's a great idea because now you as the customer can decide which one you want, right? You don't have to go and say, hey, now I want to add some Warglaives to my army. You go down to your local gaming store and there are a lot of Warglaives. They have a box of Helverins, but they don't have any Warglaives. But you really need this to make it a Warglaive, and you know they don't have it. That kind of sucks. So with this Armiger box set, which is titled Knights Armiger instead of Knights Helverin or Knights Warglaive, you can have the best of both worlds and choose which ones you want. And of course, you know me, I love magnets and I love magnetization. So now I can basically have the 2 different models by magnetizing the weapon options. So if I want it to be a Helverin, I just stick these on. And then if I want it to be a Warglaive, I'll just magnetically stick these on instead now, type of thing, right? And you look here, you can see the thermal spear, that part right there, that little half circle, and there's another half circle on the other side of that. When you put these 2 together, that's where this lower weapon arm connects to the upper arm of the Armiger, and that's perfect for a 5mm magnet to fit in there. The autocannons are the same way, okay? Exactly the same for the autocannons. Perfect. The Reaper chain cleaver is slightly different because you have this swivel point where the arm kind of has this chain cleaver kind of has this swivel arm where there's a joint there, and this is actually the part that you would then put the magnet in. You can kind of see that semicircle, right? It's basically half of the upper arm that you would put the magnet into, and voila, you've got now magnetized weapon options so that you can choose either the Helverin or the Warglaive depending on whatever game and whatever, you know, army you want to field them as. One thing to note, to some people, what I'm about to say is not a big deal. To other people, it is a big deal. But if you look at the Helverin, right? This is the Helverin sprue, or at least this is the sprue that's specific to the Helverin. It's got the shoulder pads, and it's got the upper leg or thigh armor, right? And then it's got the lower ankle armor. right? And then you look at this one and it's got the same thing, but they are different. So with the Warglaive, this shoulder pad or this pauldron has this skull with a spear in the back of it, and then it's got this cog design on the top of it. The Helverins do not. The Helverin, no cog design, no skull. Yeah, and you'll see that motif for the Helverin is just this halberd trident type of thing, pointy spear thing on the top, whereas the motif for the Warglaive is the skull thing, right? You got this skull on all of the little things, not so much the ankle one, but you can kind of you can tell that this ankle piece with the roundish spearhead or arrowhead goes with these, and it does not. This ankle, kind of focus, sorry, see that? This ankle rounded arrowhead does not go with this spearhead. Different, right? So something to keep in mind. If you're going to design or make this model, you're going to have to choose between this armor motif or the other armor motif, even though you make the weapons hot swappable. And so me personally, I don't care. Most people I don't think care. I like this design better because I think the cog and the skull, that's more reminiscent of actual grim dark type of thing, right? And plus I can now, with the skull motif, play it as both an armiger for Imperial Knights or a war dog for the Chaos Knights. And these are perfectly suitable to be used as war dogs for Chaos Knights. Even though Chaos Knights war dogs have their own separate model kit, you can buy this one and then you can just say, this is a Chaos Knight war dog. Of course, the weapons are slightly different, so you're going to have to figure that part out on your own. But this looks like it could be Imperial or Chaos, right, with the skull. So it's up to you. To each his own. I personally prefer this one, this design, over this design. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty much it. That is the new Knights Armiger model kit that came out in 2022 by Games Workshop. These sprues themselves are actually as old as, I think, 2018 or slightly older. So they've been around a while, but it's just been reboxed to include both weapon options for the Armigers. And that's a great thing, even though they charge a little bit more. I think retail on this is like 90 or 95 US dollars right now, whereas if you were to get the box sets that were just a Helverin or just a Warglaive, those were like 75 or 80 retail US dollars. But that's pretty much it. Thank you all very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment. If I said something wrong or if you want to clarify something that I didn't, ask questions, by all means, leave a comment because sharing is caring. Thank you once again. Until next time, Grim out.